Welcome back to Locked In with Tiffany Nicole. You know who it is. It's your girl, Tiffany Nicole. Yes, season two. I told you guys it's going to be interesting. I've already had a mother that spoke last week, and now I have someone who actually's been in prison and now he's free. I told you guys it's going to be a twist of season two, and I'm super excited to introduce my guest. Yes, my guest for today's episode. Mothers, take a deep breath. Let's do this together, mothers. And we're going to exhale this out. This is someone that's been in prison for 29 years. He's going to talk about the journey. He's going to talk about every arena that mothers need to know about having a child in prison. He's name of this episode is Insight. The past, present, and the future. Yes. He's going to dive in, and he's an open book. He's very authentic. He is not going to hold back on what happened on the inside. So, I would like to introduce my guest, Major. How do you feel?
I feel great. Yeah, thank you for having me, Tiffany. And I think it's so important that mothers have an opportunity to understand this insight that I'm talking about today, which is past, present, and future. I think it's an element that really gives them a closer understanding of if they're going through similar situations and how they can process that moving forward. So, yeah, I would just say that this is a great start.
I'm super excited. First, I want to say thank you for being one of my guests. I've never had a guest that actually has been incarcerated and now is free and now is doing a lot for the community. So, first, I want to say thank you and God bless you for taking your time for being on my podcast. So, thank you so much, Major, for that.
Thank you for coming to our 5 year anniversary. This is how we met.
That is how we met. Yes, people. Like
Yes.
we met I got invited from one of my friends, Dre and his wife, to come to this event. And I was actually behind the scenes. I was actually helping serving the food. And then I got released from the back. First I want to say, like, it's always good to be humble. You know what I'm saying? Like I was in the back in the kit, like fixing the food. I wasn't even on the floor. I wasn't even none of that. I was behind the scenes. And then I got released to go out and check out the the event, and that's how I ran into you because I was so impressed with so many things that you were guys were doing, and so it was just like I was at awe. But before we dive into that part, I want to discuss. So, okay, mothers. So for the mothers that are battling um the trauma of having a child that's incarcerated, um Major was incarcerated for 29 years. So you went in at 19, correct?
20.
20. He went in at 20. Okay, and he was released of March 6th of 2018. So let's dive in to those 29 years. I know we only got like 40 minutes, so we're not gonna. But I still want to dive in to like um the past, the present, the future, the insight of those 29 years. So let's dive into that. First, my first question is like do you want to discuss what got you into prison?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Whatever
Okay.
you, yeah.
So let's dive into that. So tell the listeners like you were 20, like what decisions you made as you look back now, like you should have, could have, would have.
Okay, so I would just say that I'm from California. You know, we know gangs is at an all-time high. I found myself with the wrong crowd. I started to play into those activities, and that led to a life sentence at the age of 20 for a carjacking that I committed at the age of 20. In that process, a young man lost his life, and I was sentenced to 15 years to life
Mm.
for a crime that I committed at the age of 20. My mindset didn't change when I was sentenced to 15 years of life. I got to prison and I kept the same mindset. I didn't see nothing wrong from being in prison or even the act that I committed. I couldn't feel. I was very desensitized to my emotions and I was just numb. That,
Let's pause for that. When you
yeah.
said you was desensitized, was there a reason for that? Like there was something that made you like, I really don't care. Like what was that? in that moment that made you feel like, "You know what? It is what it is. I really don't have no emotions right now."
Yeah, it was the lifestyle that I chose before I committed the crime.
Okay.
So I was already, you know, growing up as a kid, I felt like indifference. I felt like I didn't fit in. I was always trying to prove myself to certain, uh, peers, and that just led to a destructive lifestyle that led me to a life sentence. So I would just say that there were some internal things that were happening to me that I couldn't identify,
Mhm.
and that played a major role in my choices as I moved forward uh, in catching a life sentence. So yeah, I would just say that those are some of the elements. We call them causative factors. That's what they're called, basically. Cause and effect. So I would say yeah, those are some of the things that really played a role leading up to my life sentence.
Next question. How did this impact, like, when you committed the crime, your mother? Because we have a lot of mothers. I officially made 900 mothers in my Facebook group. I made it today.
Wow.
900 mothers are in this group. Um, what would you like? How does this impact your mother and was your father in your life, just family as a whole?
Yeah, I think my mother was. It was just she was shocked. She couldn't
Hmm.
believe that you know what the courts were saying about me was true. She was in denial. She couldn't come to a point to even think that that was something that her son would possibly do. And I didn't tell her the truth. I tried to play like I was innocent the whole time because I knew already that I disappointed my mom and my father. So I was in denial as well.
Okay.
And she was in denial that I actually committed this crime. So
So do
I
you think like a lot of mothers are in denial of the crime that their children have committed?
I would say that majority of them, I would say yeah, because they see this young man from the moment that they were uh, brought into this world, and this precious soul that lies before them, and they just can't possibly see, these crimes that are these accusations or crimes that are happening, in this young man's life. So a mother's definitely is going to avoid that this is even happening right now. So I would say, yeah, definitely, any mother uh, don't want to admit that this is happening to her son.
I wanna know, like, why is it that? Because my son did the same thing you just did to your mother, like, I didn't believe him because my son is a good manipulator. Like, why do, like, sons manipulate their mamas and believing that they innocent? Because my son did the same thing, but there's a part of me that I knew he committed the crime.
So just to be honest, just as I spoke earlier, this is insight, past,
Mhm,
present, and future.
mhm,
As a gang member, growing up in a lifestyle, being a criminal, you start to learn how to manipulate. You start to learn how to
mm,
avoid and blame and rationalize. You start to learn these things because the lifestyle that you're choosing, it comes with it.
mm,
It comes with that. So we call it criminal thinking. We call it uh, small thinking. So I
okay.
think that's what was for me that made me just easily say, "Mom, no, I didn't do it." So that's
And
just one.
mom instantly believed you, right?
Yeah. hmm Yeah, she
Okay.
believed.
And how many siblings do you have?
I'm the oldest, and I
Okay.
have three other siblings.
3 others, okay. So mom believed you
hmm As the oldest.
as the oldest.
hmm
And your dad?
My dad, my dad, my dad didn't believe. He wasn't going for it. Yeah, my father was just like, you do the time. I mean, you do the crime, you do the time. That's how he kept it very simple. He didn't go into details. He's like, you committed this crime, you're gonna do the time.
Okay. So 29 years, so when you first got in, were you scared? Like, what did you feel? Or, like, since you already had, like, this toughness about you, you didn't go in there scared, like, you wasn't fearful? Like, how was your whole demeanor when you first got in there?
I think any new environment, regardless of what you feel, that your strength is,
Mhm.
it's always going to be a sense of fear deep down inside of you. And
Okay.
there was a fear inside me, but you can't show that
Okay.
outwardly. But I know internally, I was like terrified.
Okay. So, when you were in there, did your mom, like how was your mom, like, when the first trans like, when everything set, like, how was your mom mentally?
I think after I would say maybe 3 or 4 years,
Mhm.
she she started to go through a process of, is this really happening?
Okay.
Yeah, I felt like she was like, is this still like, did my son just get life, in prison? Like she was still numb to it as well. Because I was still
Okay.
numb. The first few years, I was like, okay, do you realize you just got sentenced to life? So I think she was just as numb as I was.
Okay. And how was dad?
My dad, again, he simplifies everything. He's very simple. He's like, do the time, you know, study, do whatever you need to do, come home. And he
Oh.
kept it simple.
So, was there a shift in the family, like between like how some like it's not sometimes men have like this toughness, but mamas be like, "It's my baby." Like, was there friction between your mom and dad? Because I know there's friction between like I've heard a lot of mothers say like there's friction between the husband and the wife because the wife is so emotional. And the husband's just like he did the crime, so he needs to do the time, just like exactly what your father said.
Yeah, it depends on the family
Hmm.
structure and the dynamic of that family. But I would say maybe 60% of that depends on what that relationship looks like with the two parents
Okay.
and how, like, so my father was very, he was the man that really understood his role, and my mother really believed pretty much everything that my father had shared, but she just couldn't come to terms with herself that I committed that crime. But she knew that my father was right. She just didn't want to accept that.
Okay. So in the midst of all this time of being in prison, what did prison teach you? Because you went in at 20. I still feel like at 20, a 20-year-old man, I still feel like a 20-year-old is still like a kid. You're not really a man yet. So did prison teach you how to be a man? And like, what did it actually teach you?
Well, again, California prisons, I'm gonna be
Hmm.
honest with you, it's not teaching you anything.
Mm.
It's teaching you how to continue on with the lifestyle that you had before you came to prison. It only enhances that lifestyle 10 times because now you're surrounded by people who are criminals, who committed crimes similar to yours, who are in gangs, who are using drugs. So they put you in a toxic environment where it's impossible for you to even analyze what you've done and how you got there. So it only enhances 10 times.
Did you get any therapy sessions? I don't know if that was involved like back then. Like, was there any like therapists, any psychologists that came in to the prisons?
No, that wasn't their intentions to help us out. Now, one thing that people maybe have to realize that California prisons were designed for Black and Brown communities
Hmm.
to not advance and not grow from their mistakes. So as time went on, we started to take initiative on what we wanted to work on ourselves. It was the CDCR, which is California Departments of Correctional Rehabilitation. So they wasn't trying to help us in that process. We had to help ourselves in order to find that transformation.
Wow. So through that whole time when you were in there was no self-development. There was like did you have a job when you were in there?
Yeah, I had a job. So
Mhm.
I would say from 1992 is when I went to prison. 1992.
1992. Okay.
Yeah, 1992 is when I went to prison. I would say 20 2005 when
2005.
is when they brought the first program in, which was NA, which is narcotics,
Really?
yeah, which is Narcotics Anonymous. And so they wasn't. It wasn't about rehabilitation. It was about just throw away the, you know how they say throw away the key, leave you
Yeah.
there. That's
Mhm.
what it was. That's what it was. That's what it was about.
So
And in
from
2000,
1992
mhm,
to 2005,
yes, 2005.
and then that's when you someone something came into the prisons.
Yes, but I didn't get involved with those programs right away because I had been accustomed to not being a part of those kind of programs.
Okay.
I was still acting out. I was still using drugs. I was still being involved in the gang lifestyle. There was no sense of hope. There was no sense of seeing myself in the free world. Like the light was completely out of hope.
So, like, was your mom calling you at this time? Because, us mothers, like, we call our sons or daughters and we're just like, we try to uplift them. We try to encourage them to stay away from, like, the bad group of people in prison. Like, was your mother talking to you about that, or your father, or was somebody encouraging you to, like, stay on the straight and narrow while you're in there?
No, they really didn't understand prison. You know,
Okay.
all they can say is, I would call them and I would make it seem as though everything was fine
And
when
everything wasn't okay.
it wasn't okay. I was having fights on the yard. I was having riots where you riot with other racial people that's there, Hispanics, whites, and so I didn't share those things with my mom, them, and my father because I knew that was a stress factor that I didn't want them to
Mm.
have on their mind. So I would always call and make it seem like everything was fine.
Wow, because I had a mom today say she's like, "I talked to my son and she's just like, he says everything okay, but she goes, in his voice, I know everything is not okay."
Mhm.
So you would do the same thing to your mom?
Yeah, because it's just why would I tell my mom, hey, we just had a riot on the yard, and I just feel like that's just too much pressure for her. She has a life out there, she has a job, and I don't want to I don't want to derail what she needs to do out there in the big world. So
Right.
I would never share that with her.
Now, have you ever shared it with her?
I would say later on down the line,
You did?
uh,
Okay.
as I was completely in my change,
Okay.
but it was still it was still limited though.
Okay. So, for mothers that are listening, I have several mothers that sons that are doing like 25 years to life that are part of the group, and even like 10 to 15 years. What are the things that mothers could say to their children on the inside to keep the spirits uplifted? Because I know it's a challenge inside of there, like you said, like the fights, like because mothers just think like, oh, it's still my baby, but on the other end, you know, he's not a baby anymore.
I would say that encourage them to get involved in any kind of self-help group.
Okay.
Some people are spiritual people. That's a great way to bring yourself to terms with what you are in prison for.
Hmm.
But also just acknowledge that he's a young man that's going through something right now. It's life, and we just have to hope that he comes through those doors and not being hurt. Through the prison to the prison
Hmm.
system. We just got to pray on it and just hope all for the best for this young man to come home because when you're in those environments, it's very difficult to survive. It really is because you're in a small environment and it's a community and there's nowhere to run or hide. And when something happens,
Hmm.
you just have to hope that it's not your turn because a lot of times innocent people get killed in prison.
Right.
So it's just you just have to keep holding on to hope that he will make it home.
Because there's a lot of mothers like that always say, I'm so worried. I'm so worried. What were the conversations that you and your mother had?
Well, I had, me and my mom, we had conversations, but it wasn't that many conversations.
Okay.
I had a lot of conversations with my dad because I knew that I had to be straightforward with my dad.
Okay.
There was no beating around the bush. I would just because I he installed that in me. So there was no like trying to manipulate this conversation with him.
Right, because he's a man and he knows, like your dad knows the ins and outs.
Yes. And so, but my mom, I will always find myself manipulating the conversation because I was afraid of her feeling even down in what she already feels.
So you had a two-parent household growing up,
Hmm.
and you still shifted.
Yes, I
Do
did.
y do you know like, do you think back in hindsight, like, what made you shift to go to the streets?
Yeah, I know clearly what shifted me to the streets. So I grew up during the war on drugs. So during the late '80s, early '90s, the war on drugs was very, very hot uh, across state lines, and so we were poor. We didn't have all the best of things, and
Mhm.
I got involved with selling drugs, and then that led to the gang lifestyle because to protect what I was doing in the neighborhood, which was to sell drugs.
Mhm.
I had to be involved in some kind of structure
Okay.
which was the gangs. And I think that just led and it escalated and it contributed to my behavior, which was the war on drugs. And that amplified everything to me that got me in prison. My mom and them did the best that they can. My father did the best that they can. They put me in sports. They kept me in school. They did everything. I don't blame my mom or my dad or anything that they did. They taught me what they were taught, and they did the best that they can, and they saw nothing wrong with it. Now, for I had to learn that I had to learn that down the line as I got older. But
Okay.
I used to blame them earlier in my sentence, like when I was like 27, 28. I would
Mhm.
always point the finger at them, like God did this, and y'all should did this better. This, but as I got older and I started to learn more about their role in my life and my role in my own life, it was clear to me that I made choices that had nothing to do with my parents. It was because of how I was feeling and how I wanted to feel different around my peers that led me to a life sentence.
Because so I get so caught up with my son, like, I wish I could've, would've, and then my son, says to me all the time, "Mom, you did all that you could do. You did what you was taught." He's like, "But this doesn't fall on you." And I think so many mothers have so much guilt. Did your mother have guilt in this process? In
Yeah,
the season of
absolutely. I believe my mom had guilt. Did she ever share that with me? Nah, she never shared it with me. But I do believe, just in our conversations, her letters,
Mhm.
how she would always point the finger, in her direction. Had I did this, had I did that, but I would never elaborate on those things when she would do it.
Okay.
I would
Why is
never
that?
because I knew that it would only enhance what she was already feeling.
Okay.
So I would derail that conversation or I would just try to avoid it all at the same time.
Okay. And now your siblings. So you mentioned you have 3 siblings, and
Hmm.
believe you told me that 2 of them passed away?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So, with 2 of them passing away and you were on the inside, correct, when they passed away?
Yeah.
What was your whole your mindset of, because they're your siblings, like, you grew up with them. Like, what was your shift in, like, how did that make you feel? Did that make you change in a way? Did that make you, like, look at life differently?
No, not at all. I was still in an environment that I felt that I was desensitized because I had no time to grieve or
Mm,
process those losses because the environment that I was in had my undivided attention, and
okay.
there was no room to grieve, feel sad, feel happy, fear. The only room of emotions that that environment gave me was anger, and I couldn't play into those other areas
You
because
were
the
angry.
environment wouldn't allow me to do it.
Okay. So you were angry. When you say you were angry, did that cause you to start fighting more in the prisons? Like, what did that happen? What happened?
Yes, I felt like every time I was fighting in prison, it was like a release. or what I was going through internally. Like I needed to get this off my chest. And even if I hadn't had a fight in a month, I
Mhm.
felt like I was eager, like I need to go do something to somebody. So I felt like I played into that frustration, the answers that I didn't have by using violence towards other inmates.
Now back then, I'm not sure, were you able to go home to the funeral or was you not able to go home to the funeral? What
No,
did I don't know if that was that allowed.
well, anyone with a life sentence, they're not allowed to go to a funeral. Now, if you didn't have a life sentence, they can they can probably schedule someone to visit those
Oh,
people.
I did not
Yeah,
know that. So anyone with license, they're not able to go home to the relative's funeral.
no,
Hmm. So when your siblings pass, did the relationship between you and your mother change as it did to become closer, or was there a disconnect?
it was a disconnect. And so, what I really feel, right, just learning more about the whole process of my family and myself and the crime that I committed is simply how we always say it: out of sight, out of mind. My mom
Hmm.
has her life. My mom has her life that she has to live. My father has his life that he has to live. It's not intentionally that they don't want to, keep me in mind every day, all day. But that is what the system is designed in some aspects is to break up families and separate that because it causes this coalition. I mean, this crash. When you take the young man out of the household of his mom and his dad. So those
Can we say
things,
black man? Can we say when we
right?
take the black
Absolutely,
man? Yeah. Can
yeah,
we say, yeah,
yeah.
it's the difference when you take that black man out that household.
Yes, yes, they know intentionally, right? You take that black man out of the household, it shifts the dynamics
It
of a
shifts.
family, and then
Hmm.
it puts the pressure on the presence of the mother and other siblings and things of
Hmm.
that nature. So yeah, that is something that's happening to this day.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Totally agree. So as we fast forward to like where you are now, you released March 6, 2018. Um, do you think okay, so you made a decision, committed a crime. Would you go back and change anything?
No,
Tell
I
me
wouldn't
why.
go because all my friends that I grew up with
Mhm.
are no longer here today. All those individuals that I
Mm.
ran with on the streets are no longer here. I'll have one friend that's still here today. It's and so I felt like uh, I was gonna have a life sentence or I was gonna be dead. Period. So in some aspects, I feel like prison saved my life in some aspects because what it did was it forced me to really learn uh, this criminal lifestyle that I was involved in, and there was no place for me to survive in this world with that mindset. That's just my perspective, and
Mhm.
I really felt like it really, uh, like I'm living. To be honest, I'm really living like my best life today now
No,
because
tell the people. Yes, tell
yeah,
them like you're living
yeah,
your yeah.
yeah, I'm living my best life today, and the only reason why I feel like I'm really living my best life,
Mhm.
because I can truly say that I internalized who I really was then, and who I am
Who you are
today,
now.
and how I can decide how I think, how I feel, and how I respond is what got me to prison. And so now I can determine how those things interact with me today. And I don't have to respond the same way I did, 20 some years ago, because
Mhm.
I have the right to think and feel, but I don't have to respond and find my consequences is a life sentence in prison. So just that transformation for me to learn all these programs,
Mhm.
cognitive behavior. I did so many classes in prison, and I was really eager to learn about human behavior, and
Okay.
it really taught me a lot about myself. But another thing that I would say that taught me a lot of stuff in prison is that the way I survived in prison became my tool out here in the free world because
Okay.
you have to understand human behavior in prison in order to survive.
That's true.
Yeah, and so now that I realize that I'm out here now, I can understand what's so much frustrated. I can approach it different. So I would just say that that's been my greatest asset since I've been home.
That is a blessing because I also feel my son, I believe the hearts of hearts that God has saved him and protected him because I think if my son was free, because I'm originally from Chicago in the suburbs of Chicago, there was a shooting sometime last year, and my son's friends were part of that. And I truly believe that if my son was free, I know he would have been at that party. And I but like a couple people got murdered at that party. And I believe my son would probably could have been part of that. And he could and so instead of me, sending commissary, I could be going to visit a graveyard.
Yes, yes, that
And
is
so that's a blessing that you're able to acknowledge that, you know what? I know I committed the crime, but when you look at it in hindsight, you're saying it actually saved me too. And you said only one of your friends is still alive in that time frame?
yes. So only one of my friends is alive, and I would say that I caught it with him about 2 years after my release,
Okay.
and he asked me to meet him at the cemetery, and I met him at the cemetery right here
Oh,
in Inglewood, California, and we just braced each other, and then he just started pointing at all my friends that were in the cemetery, and he was just like, "John is over there, and Kevin's over there," and he just wouldn't stop. And all these individuals, as he
wow.
was doing that, I was just sitting there, and I was just like, "Man, God, you like really
He
do that."
spared your life. Like,
Yeah,
oh my God. Like, yeah.
yeah, he spared my life, and I was just like, it just really made me appreciate like all the hard work that I did in prison, all the self help that I accumulated when I was inside. And like I said, 2018 is when they decided to let me go after 29 years.
That is a blessing. And with that being said, as your friend took you to the cemetery, he pointed out, there goes John, there goes Jacob, there goes Tim, there goes Michael. How, when you guys departed, you got in your car, what did you tell yourself in that process? Like, because that's a lot to take in. When majority of your friends that you hung out with back in what year was that?
'90.
Back in 1990. And all of your friends that you hung out with are all buried, and God spared you. And now let's transition to what you're doing today. You're doing a lot for the community. You're part of a organization. What's the name of the organization?
So I'm a part of an organization called Inglewood Wrapping Arms Around the Community, which is I'm the co-founder of that. I'm the vice president, and we provide housing for returning citizens. We provide jobs. We provide any kind of readiness skills that they would need. We provide transportation when they get out of prison. If they don't have a ride home from prison. We provide clothes. I just want to make sure that these individuals have a handout that will
Mhm.
really get them to the next level of their transformation. And that was just something that I was passionate about. And that was just the beginning of my being a servant to my community. And then I just started getting involved in other organizations with some of my other friends who came home. Like you see on the what you call a screen, it says Made New Foundation,
Mhm.
and that's my other program that I'm involved in, co-founder. We use virtual reality, uh,
And that's the
and
one I met you at.
well, that was Creative Acts.
Creative Acts, Creative
Yeah,
Acts. Okay. Creative Acts.
Creative Acts use virtual reality in solitary confinement,
Mhm.
and then Made New Foundation, we use it in the transition homes, in schools, in prisons, and things like that. So, yeah, I got my hands in a little bit of everything right now.
Major, I just want to let you know, like I know, like you was gone for 29 years, but the devil mean it for your bad, and God meant it for your good because when you got out, now look where you are right now in 2022 or 2023. I'm sorry, and you're doing so much for the community. But if you were in the graveyard, you wouldn't be able to do. all these programs that you're doing and being the founder and help people finding housing, finding jobs. And with your background, you can relate to so many inmates who are now free. So you can't say like you hear their struggles and you're like, "I've been there, but I overcame like, how did you overcome all the struggles?" Because I know, first of all, you black and you a man. So getting out of prison, not having like first, it's gonna hard for you to find a job. And you can relate to the brothers that are getting out. And how did you overcome all those rejections that you got when you got out of prison?
Well, I'm a spiritual person, so I was free mentally in
Mm-hmm.
2014. See, I was
2014.
yeah,
Okay.
2014 mentally, the chains were off my mind. I was no longer free mentally. I was free. I mean, I was still in prison
Mm-hmm.
physically, but God had freed my mind from the chains that was on my mind about my belief system and who I was and who I needed to prove who I was. Those things were no longer in my mindset anymore because God had freed me from those chains. And also, He allowed me to really start to look at myself and ask for help and seek help. I wasn't afraid that I didn't have all the answers to life and who I was as a child. So it put me in all these programs. And once I was able to get into these programs, I started to understand what brought me to prison. And then I found my freedom, and I felt like this whole different way of thinking was uh, was a better way for me in order to survive in
Okay.
a healthier way, though, in a healthier way. And so, was I afraid that I wasn't gonna get a job? No, because I value myself at an all time high. Like I'm gonna go out here and do some great stuff. I knew where I wanted to be at. I knew that I wanted to change people's lives. I knew that I had the ability to be me. Right? I didn't have to be what you wanted me to be. I didn't have to talk the way you wanted me to talk. I was gonna come in that space and be me and be authentic and be self driven. And that was never going to change the way I saw myself moving forward. And so when I came home, I already had laid out things that I wanted to do. I wrote a book when I was in solitary confinement. It's published. It's on Amazon right now.
What's the
Uh,
name of the book?
it's called Prison Relationships 101.
And it's on Amazon.
Yes, on Amazon, and it teaches you
Major,
how.
you didn't
Yeah,
tell me that.
and it
I gotta
teaches
order
you.
the book.
Yeah, and it teaches you how to maintain your relationships with your siblings and with your partner. And so
Okay.
that was something that I really felt that I was passionate about. And when I came home, I would say about a year later, I got it published and put it on Amazon. And so I didn't find any kind of like limitations to where I wanted to go or where I wanted to be. It
Mhm.
was just really I know I wanted to be my own boss for sure. I didn't want to work for nobody, you know. So I did that for 2 years, and I said,
That's
"No,
that
this
hustling you. Hope you know that. That's that
no,
hustling you.
I know what it is. Yeah, all I did was all I did was transform my hustle. You know,
Into
it was already in me. I just had to learn how to use it in the right way.
yes, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
In the right way. That's right.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Oh my god, like, I didn't know you had a book on Amazon. You ain't telling me that part.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
gotta order it. I gotta order it.
Yeah.
I gotta read it. So it's so say the name of the book again?
It's called Prison Relationships 101.
Okay. And
Yeah.
just, like, give me a snippet of that.
Well, it just really teaches. See, there's what I feel is that because people are incarcerated, people believe that they still don't love or they can't love someone that is in the free world. And so I felt like there was this dynamic that because someone was incarcerated, that they couldn't be in a relationship because it was a long distance relationship or it just don't work because we just don't do these kind of relationships.
Mhm.
And I felt like just because someone's circumstances is something that is happening right now doesn't take away the love that two people have for each other. It's no
Mhm.
different than a long distance relationship, on the streets.
Right.
It has these different shifts, but other than that, people still can love each other from a distance. So I wanted to talk about those things because there's a lot of prisoners that are married and There's
Mhm.
different dynamics of relationships, good, bad, you name it. I've seen it all. I've been there before, and so I just felt like there was something that needed to be shared with people that were interested in uh, probably dating someone that's incarcerated because you don't know that. So, say for instance, you're with someone and they're coming home from a late night work, and something happens and they get in trouble or they hit somebody and they're in prison, but you've been married to this person 21 years.
Mhm.
Are you going to leave that person because this person committed a crime accidentally, whatever? So I talk about those things. So anyway, that's the reason why I decided to make the book.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get this book and then promote it. Yes, I love this.
Mhm.
Look at look at God. Like you came
Yeah,
out with this whole different mindset and everything. But what
yeah.
happens when, because it's always like, I don't know the numbers, the statistic, like you're like part of the few that come out like that with that mindset.
Well, to be honest with you, I have a lot of friends
Mhm.
who are doing just as much as I'm doing right now,
Who are in prison,
who are in prison, who are out now.
who are out now.
I have,
Yes.
yeah, I have over 1,000 friends. When I say a
Mm,
thousand friends, because you remind you, when I started my time back in '91,
mhm.
I started my time with other people who started their time back then.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so they had 15, 20 years of life,
And now
and
they're
so
free. Yes.
they're getting out. And so I go back into the prisons and I see some of these guys who are still struggling, and they see me and they're like, "Man, how did you get to a point to change your life?" And so I kind of just let them know, like, I was tired of being tired. That's what it really came down to. I was just tired of being tired, and I decided to change my life.
So how can mothers, because my son and I have a different relationship. Like, I'm a comedian and my son's a comedian. So we're like big jokester when we talk on the phone. But every mother doesn't have that type of relationship. And I have to realize that being a part of this group, um, my son and I, we just crack jokes when we talk on the phone. Um, what can mothers say, or to, because there's mothers that say like, I don't know what to say anymore when you know and I feel guilty to say that I actually had a fun day with my girlfriends or with family. Like what can they say to their sons or daughters, to uplift them, besides the regular like, I love you, it's going to be okay? Like what do inmates want to hear from their loved ones as mothers and fathers? Like, what do they want to hear to keep them going on the inside? When you had those bad days, when you got in those fights, like, and when you spoke to your mom or your dad, like, what would you want them to tell you?
Well, it's that's a hard question right there because the dynamics of these relationships, we don't really know each one. It's
Mhm.
Everyone's different.
Right.
So I would say for me, right, how I would encourage my mom or how she would encourage me is that my mom, she loves bingo. And my mom
Okay.
plays bingo all the time. So
Okay.
anytime I would talk to her, my mom on the phone, I'd be like, Mom, how did you do a bingo this week? Because I know that she goes to bingo every week. And
Okay.
so that was my gateway
Okay.
to get this connection. So I would think that we have to find this unique area that we only know for ourselves. Like you
Mhm.
said, you know that you and your son are jokesters. So
Mhm.
y'all found this unique area that is aligned with how we communicate with each other that can lead to other conversations. So I
Right.
think it's really up to the individuals to search and look for that area of common interest. And that was my common interest with my mom. And I would always tell her, when I come home, Mom, I'm gonna take you to bingo. And so and I do it to this day. Sometimes I'll call her like, Mom, what are you up to? And she'd be like, I'm not doing nothing. I'm like, I'll be over there in a minute. And I'll be
To
like,
go to
get dressed.
take
I'll be like, get
it.
dressed, Mama. We're going to bingo. She's like, stop playing with me, boy. Are you serious? I'm like, yeah. And so I would take her to bingo, and and I know that's, to me, bingo is her release, her
Okay.
stress reliever,
Okay. So
her
she was
stress.
going to bingo a lot when you were incarcerated.
Yeah, it's her stress reliever. It's her way of saying, I need to let this stress out. I don't want to focus on anything else. And I was bothered by that because I'm like, Mom, you're just giving your money away. Why are you doing this? But
But mama coulda won some money though. Did she win? I know your
oh,
mama
oh,
won
oh
some
yeah,
money.
oh, she
I know
wins. Oh, yeah,
I
she
was about
wins.
to say, I know your
Yeah.
mama, she done
Oh
won
yeah.
some money.
They winners. Yeah, they winners for sure.
She just didn't tell you all the money
Yeah.
that she
Yes, they're winners for sure.
So, has the dynamic changed between you and your mother since I obviously when you went in prison and now that you're free? Like, what is the relationship now for you and your mother?
Yeah, the relationship now has changed tremendously. My mom still sees me as this young man at age of 19, her
Mhm.
baby. She's afraid that she's going to lose me because both of my siblings are no longer here, and then I was lost to the system, and all of the only person left is my sister. So it's like she's holding on to me for dear life. It's like I'm
Okay.
her own. I'm the only male figure left in our household. So my mom, like, she calls me all the time. She's checking in on me. She's making sure that I'm in the house. And I'm like, Mom, like, I don't do like that stuff anymore. Like, you ain't
Yeah.
gotta kiss me. I'm not on the streets like that. I'm in at 6 o'clock, like, from work. And I go to sleep at 8 or 9. So she's like, but she still it's hard for her to break that that stigma of what she sees about me. And I think the last when we had the 5 year anniversary,
Mhm.
that my mom was there. That was the first time my mom got a chance to see me in action and see the work that I do.
The
And
5-year anniversary for
for the creative acts.
okay, your mom was there?
Yeah, my mom was there. Yeah.
Oh, I
So
didn't know she was there. Okay.
yeah, my
Okay.
mom was there, and my sister was there, and so that was the first time they got a chance to see how passionate I
Oh,
was.
okay, so your mom and sister was there, and they actually see you in motion of, like, how
Yes.
passionate you are about
Yeah.
what you're doing for the community, what you're
Yeah.
doing for organization. Okay, and then, like, what was the like, how was that conversation after I know it wasn't that night, but the next day, did your mom call you? Like, did your sister call you?
Oh, my mom called me that night on the way
Oh,
home.
oh, on the way
She
home,
said,
okay.
"Yeah." She says, "Baby, I'm gonna stop calling you all the time, asking you what you up to, because I see that you serve in the community and you're doing so much great work out there. And I'm gonna stop worrying about you because I know that you're doing great work. So I apologize for calling you all the time, being concerned and all these things." And that's all I really wanted her to understand, that I felt like, my father's down looking down on me right now, and this is what he had always talked about me doing. And so now she understands that she don't call me all the time and ask me, "What are you doing?" She knows that I'm doing great work.
Oh my god, that is such
Yeah.
amazing.
Mhm.
Oh, how did that make you feel? Like, be honest, like, how did
Yeah.
that really did like, I don't know, men don't be crying, but did you cry, Major?
Yes, I did. Absolutely, because I really felt like I wanted her to really understand that I wanted to put my mark on this earth, especially named Major Lawrence Bunton. I'm the third, and I know how much she honors my dad. And,
Okay.
my father always told her, uh, before he passed away, that I was going to do great things when I came home. And so when she see me now, she's like, "Your dad always said that you was going to do some really good stuff when you came home," because we had those conversations. My father saw me in my transformation, and he was like, "I knew you was going to get a young man." So now my mom gets to see what he was talking about all this time.
It's amazing how parents can see the other side of us. Cause I said the same thing to my son, like, I tell him all the time, like, people at the high school, they're like, "Oh, he's gonna end up either dead or in prison." And he ended up in prison, but that's not his end game. I've said that he's great. There's greatness within you, and I said that there's a king inside of you, and the king is gonna come out. I'm not a prophet, but I know God has greatness for you, and it's crazy how your father said, like, Major, "Yeah, you committed this crime. Yeah, you served 29 years, and in spite of all that, there's still greatness inside of you, and you're still gonna make a footprint on this planet." And
Yes,
it's
it is.
crazy, like, your father, like, I don't know if obviously, was he a believer?
Yes, he was.
So, like, it's crazy how God gave him that insight. It's almost like he was like a prophet,
Mhm.
like, giving the prophecy, like, your mom was just like, "Wait, 1 minute," but your dad knew. that there
Yes,
was greatness inside of you.
absolutely. And I realized that my biggest asset now that I'm home
Mhm.
is my integrity. It's who I became. It's the characteristics that I reestablished in myself
Mhm.
that has opened up all the doors that I can possibly think of. It wasn't it wasn't money. It wasn't this great skill that I had.
Mhm.
It was just this authentic place that I learned about myself, and the sincerity of who I am
Mhm.
had opened up all the doors that I never thought that was possible. And I'm like, man, this is. And I try to tell my friends that's inside. They like, how are you working for all these organizations? And they're all like, what did you do? And what kind of skills you got? And did you go to school for it? And I'm like, no, I'm just being honest with myself today. That's it. No more,
That
no
is a
less.
blessing. That is a blessing, and you're helping so many young people.
It's
Now, what's the age group that you usually, help in the organizations?
Well, we have a youth program,
Okay.
so we're working inside the juvenile halls from 13 to 17.
Okay.
I'm actually in some of the girls' camps right now for the
Okay.
girls, and then I'm in one of the boys' camps, and then we serve the adults in prison. So I'm pretty much. It's crazy because I get to see both worlds, right? I get to see the young kids
Mhm.
who think that they have all the answers, and then I get to see the older
The
people
older.
who are saying, "Why did I make that choice?" And so I get to see both worlds, right? And I'm just like, and these people over here want to know what these people are thinking over here, and what these people are thinking over here.
Right.
It's so interesting to really see the dynamics of these two worlds.
Oh my god, like, Major, I am so honored to have you on this show, like, I'm just like, you have so much. I have to have you back. I hope you can fit me into your schedule as you're doing you're at all these different organizations. I
Yeah.
have to have you back. But before we end, I want for you to leave something, for the mothers. Mothers, I had a few mothers call me today, um, crying because they miss their sons. Um, what can you tell those mothers who are really down and out and who are depressed, battling this incarceration with their son?
I would say that it's those feelings are accurate. They're real. Just learning how to process that moving forward is the most important thing. Is how do we process that? We don't want that to dwell in us where it takes us to these different places that are not healthy for us, but we want to come out of that darkness that is pulling on us right now and just start to encourage yourself and not to get caught up in social media and what's happening in these prisons and things because that stuff is toxic
Like
because some
Georgia,
people.
Georgia's
Yes,
toxic.
absolutely. So we have to be careful on what we're taking in. That's only going to enhance what we're feeling and do the best they can to stay away
Mhm,
from what they're hearing because it does no good for someone who's trying to process a young man who's no longer in their lives, their son, their siblings, whatever that may be. And just keep believing. If they're spiritual people, just have faith in that process. That was something that really got me through it and got my mom through it. It was just something that we both can attach ourselves to
mhm.
that was separated, that had us separated. So my faith was something that I held on to the end. So I don't have all the answers for the mothers, but I do know this here: when that young man comes home, if he's doing what he needs to do and he's taking care of his business, he's going to profit in his change and where he's going to be at in the free world. So that'll be my closeout.
This is amazing. I'm so like, that was good. That's good for me as well. Because I always have to have the right mindset when I know my son's coming home and what it looks like. Um, I just want to say thank you again, Major. How can people find you, your nonprofit organization? Um, can you please like give this information so we can like, if someone wants to reach out to you, if someone wants to maybe, I'm not sure if they're allowed to even join the nonprofit or like to even get like insight for their child that maybe who's out of prison and they may need like books or something like that to help them in that situation. How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on madenewfoundation.org, or you can find me on iwatc.org. Or if you're in the California area, we're in Inglewood, California. I have an office over here right across the street from SoFi Stadium, and you can always come and visit. And we also conduct programs for people that's incarcerated. So I have self-help classes that they can take, corresponding classes. If mothers are wanting their son to take any kind of programs that I felt that was necessary for me in order to change. So that's just another way for them to kind of help their son along the journey.
And this is just for the state of California, so, like, my son's in
No,
Illinois. He
no, he can take my,
can he do
yeah,
anything?
yes, he can.
Okay,
He can take.
okay,
All you have to do is let me know what program he wants to take. We have over 25 different classes, and
okay,
we'll ship it off to him, and he can get started in that process.
okay. Well well, Major, I live in LA, so, I could do something too for the community.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And one more thing I want to say before we go is that
Yeah.
when I saw you you were inside the VR room.
Mhm,
What I saw was curiosity. You had this look on your face that there was this curiosity look on your face. Very interesting. You had like this. You were brainstorming. You were going through this process, and you were trying to calculate this whole thing that was going on in your space. And that's the reason. That's what gravitated. That's what I gravitated to, and that's
mhm.
when we had the conversation.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to share that with you, that I've seen this curiosity of wanting to know more and learn more about uh, this kind of space that you had found yourself in that particular day. And here it is. You're trying to help mothers understand this process that they're going through right now, which is so important because we need a community that understands this part of the spectrum, so they don't feel alone or feel like there's not space for them to vent and let this stuff out that is bobbling up inside them. So this particular platform is definitely necessary. Needed.
Yeah, because when my son was on the run in 2020, um, I picked up weight. Now, thank God I lost it. But I'm just saying, like, there was no outlet for me, for mothers to get this out. Like, the church is good, right? The church only talks about marriages, houses, prosperity, relationships, trying to get a husband, a wife, but they don't talk about the children that are in prison. So I would hear messages, but nothing would hit my spirit because I was like, my son's going to prison. And I started getting on the internet searching for, self help groups or books. I love podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. Um, on YouTube, there was nothing.
Yeah.
So that's what made me create this, is because this is a platform for mothers, because it's always about prison ministry. The church does prison ministry,
Mhm.
but what about the mama's ministry?
Yes.
Because I still have to get up and go to work. I still have to function. I manage a group of team. I'm a manager. Um, I don't know if you know, Major, but my son's in a hole. I'm not going to talk to him this holiday. So this is new for me.
Yes.
This space that I'm in, his voice is what gets me through. Was I sad that he's in prison? Yes. Did I go through all of that? But his voice is what gets me through the next day. But it's been 3 months that I haven't heard that voice. I have to go through old recordings that I recorded on my phone to hear his voice to get me through, or read his old text message from the tablet. So, not hearing the voice, I don't know what that looks like for me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know what that looks like. I haven't been in this space before, and his birthday is Christmas Eve. So this
Yeah.
Christmas Eve, I won't hear from him. But I know God has a bigger plan. I don't know what that plan is. I wish Jesus would tell me, but Jesus ain't talking to me right now. But God, I know you hear
Yeah.
me. But you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yes.
Like, but I have to embrace
Mhm.
what God is, because He won't give you more than you can bear, you know? So I have
Yes.
to figure this out. And obviously there's something in this.
Yeah.
So I truly appreciate you for coming on because as I'm listening to you, you're helping me too. Because I'm a mother with an incarcerated kid. Like, there's some things I probably say that I shouldn't say to my son, or I just need to just hear him just talk about whatever. So you're helping me too, and I am curious on how I can. I never thought in a million years that I'll be here, but now I'm like, how can I help people who are incarcerated? How can I help mothers who are dealing with their children being incarcerated? So
Having a
now I'm like,
conversation.
yeah, I'm having a
Yeah,
conversation, but now it's like, now I want to be a part of an organization. What can I do to volunteer? What can I do to help people? Because I know what it's like, the pain of having a child incarcerated.
yeah. I think the best thing that you can do is to continue on in the same conversation that you guys are having. Wait, even though he went to the hole, continue on because he's a survivor. He has to survive in there. We don't know what that situation looked like and what happened and what the circumstances are, but your son is a survivor. He understands the politics. He understands the streets. See, even though I was in prison, I had
Mhm,
to understand the environment that I was in. Street smart. I survived too because of street smart. If I
mhm.
didn't have no street smart, I probably would have died in prison. So we have to have some kind of street smart to understand how to get through this process because street smart you can survive with that as well. I know it sounds like, what do you mean by that, Major? But I'm telling you that he has to have some of that in order
No, I
to
get
get.
it. I get
Yeah,
it. He
he
got
has to
that
have.
street smarts.
Yeah, he has to have some of that in order to get to where you want to see him at the end of the tunnel. And we don't need to go in conversations. What you doing, boy? What's going on, right? I'm glad you're good. What's happening? We back on that again. That's what he
Mhm,
wants to hear because he don't he gonna deny it. He gonna lie. He gonna avoid it. So we don't want to
right,
continue to make him do that
mhm,
because that's a pattern. That's a pattern that he gonna keep doing. If you
right.
avoid that conversation, let's stay away from it and just get back on your horse and what that conversation was before.
Look at you dropping some wisdom to me right now. Look at
Oh, stop
you.
it.
Oh my
Stop.
god, I need look, you're giving me like you're giving me some therapy right now. I didn't I was like, I ain't going to therapy this week. But oh my god, like I'm in therapy session right now. So thank you so much, Major. I'm so happy that we had this. I'm so happy that we're able to talk about your story, your journey. I definitely would like to have you back. Maybe even have you back with someone that you're still connected with that was in prison itself and that's out and they're doing great things too. I would love to have another, you and someone else on the show as well. Um, and even like I just like you need to be on the podcast again. Major, I'm just telling you. I'm gonna have to
No
stalk
problem.
you. Yeah, the
No,
damn.
no problem. No problem. I got some people too that if you need me to talk to some of my friends who are home now who are doing, I mean, absolutely
Yes,
amazing.
I need to yes, because
Like,
mothers need to hear, like, after prison, your son can still be greatness. Because some
yes,
people, talk about, like I'm not sure if any of your friends they got out and then they went back in. Like, there's mothers that their sons that got out of prison that was out for, like, 5 years, they've been out, and then they end up going back. So now they're dealing with that. So I would love to have you back to talk about that. If you have any friends that was in prison and went back, like, I would love that, like, what's the reason for you going back? You know what I'm saying? Like, I would love to have this conversation with you.
yes, yeah. We definitely could do that. And what I didn't realize that was going to transpire was, you know, my life has been a blessing from above. God has really really made a way that I couldn't possibly think of. I told you before. I was on The Price is Right and
What?
won the whole Price is
Hold
Right. Yeah,
on. You did
yeah.
not tell me that, Major. That's
Yeah, I
what
was
you
on The
did
Price is
not.
Right. Yeah, I was on The Price is
What?
Right this June, and I won the whole showcase, and I'm going to Cape Town, South Africa, March 1st.
What?
And
In
yeah,
2024?
yeah, 2024.
Look
I'm going.
at God.
Yeah, so
Hallelujah. Won't he
yeah, so
won't he do it? Won't he
yeah,
do it? Won't he
and
do it?
that's just not. It's not on no bragging. It's not on no bragging. I just felt like God. This is how He's getting me. This is a connection to my younger brother. My brother did like these when he went to college. He
Mhm.
did these essays on Africa. So I feel like this is my connection. This is how my brother is connecting me with that.
Your brother that passed
Yeah, my
away.
I had two brothers. Yeah, my
2 bro
youngest brother,
okay,
he went to college and he did a lot of different essays on
okay,
South
and you now
Africa.
and now you're going to Africa.
Yeah, so I feel like that's my
I
connection
gotta
to
have you
America.
back. I'm having you back,
Yeah,
Major. Oh my
yeah,
god, that's such a
yeah,
blessing. I'm so excited for this.
yeah.
Well, you guys, we're gonna end this segment, and just want to say, like, thank you guys so much for listening. This is my first time having a guest on the show that has been incarcerated, so he can speak from what it's like from the inside, and we will have him back. I am honored, and I'm super excited. Again, you guys can find is there they can find you on any social media outlet too. Social media.
Yes.
Want
Hmm.
to drop your social media?
Yeah, so on Instagram it's major_cause, and then you can find me on Facebook, which is Lawrence Bunton, which is my middle name,
Hmm.
Lawrence Bunton. Yeah, so those are two, and then LinkedIn, Major
Okay.
Bunton.
Perfect. You guys heard that from him. You guys, thank you so much for listening to this segment. Again, it's your girl, Tiffany Nicole. For my mothers, stay strong, keep pushing, keep fighting. I know it's tough, but you will get through this. God still sits on the throne, and no matter what, there's victory on the other side. Just keep fighting. And ladies, and even fathers that's listening, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. And thanks for tuning in to Locked In with Tiffany Nicole.